As I go through every region in the country, same thing. Like we're, kind of 40, 50% growth to 150% growth still at this point, getting that distribution. And I think the consumer is really picking it up. And now I'm starting to see an acceleration. In the last 15 months, we've grown at an average of 154,000 households. 15 months straight. That has not slowed.
Welcome to the Startup CPG Podcast. Today, we welcome back Eric Skae of Carbone Fine Foods. We last did an episode with him in February of 2024, and at that time, it was so clear that Carbone was on its way to disrupting the category. Now, they've really broken through in a major way, hitting $100 million in sales, continuing to grow door count, their velocity, adding new SKUs, and we wanted to invite Eric back to talk about what that road has been like getting to 100. So, on today's episode, we talk about how they've managed that growth, how they continue to innovate, and tons of advice from Eric for emerging entrepreneurs. Enjoy. All right, Eric, my friend, it is so good to have you back here on the Startup CPG Podcast. I really loved the first episode that we did just because, you're somebody whose career I have watched, and it was really exciting to see you getting started with Carbone, because Carbone is a restaurant that I know and really like, and just to see the approach you were taking with the brand and, just driving really fast into the sauce category. It's been awesome to see. And so, it's been a while since we spoke, and I just wanted to bring you back onto the podcast and talk a lot about what's happened since then. I mean, you guys have gotten to some crazy number of doors. Your retail sales are absolutely astronomical. And so I would love for everyone just to get to hear what that journey has been like and get to learn from you a little bit, especially because you've done this a bunch of times before, but every time you have new lessons, new things that you can share. The path is always a little bit different. So super happy to have you back here. So the last time, when we spoke, you guys were really getting a very fast start to everything. But can you just catch us up? What is all the stuff that's happened since then at a high level?
Sure. First off, thanks for having me. I really appreciate you having me on the podcast. But I read somewhere years ago that you tend to overestimate what you can do in a year and way underestimate what you can do in 5. And we're not quite at 5. We're 4.5 on the shelves. I signed my agreement with Major Food Group on October 29th of 2020. So we are actually coming right up on 5. And you tend to underestimate what in a big way, what you get done in 5. And I think that's been the case here, right? Like I probably did overestimate the first year because, I knew Carbone from New York, like Carbone from New York. And I assumed everybody knew Carbone. Like everybody knows Carbone. Well, they didn't. Right. It's a little bit of a heavier lift from a standpoint of building awareness for the brand as we scaled. But the approach I took is the approach I've taken with every brand I've ever worked with. It's a distribution first approach, because I hate to market to empty shelves. And I know we live in a world like when I started, back in this business back in like 1990, there was no such thing as online sales. Right. That didn't happen. You have that today, but I'm in a heavy type of product. It's hard to do. You get breakage, very hard to make money online. So like you really need to drive into brick and mortar with this type of product. Other products work different. So that was the first approach. And we managed to get to, call it 26,000 doors is where we are right now in that period of time. But, the thing that excites me is not really the number of doors. It's as I go through spins, or as I go, spins in particular, as I go through every single account in food. We're not down in any of them. We're double and triple digit in all of them, right? As I go through every region in the country, same thing. Like we're, kind of 40, 50% growth to 150% growth still at this point, getting that distribution. And I think the consumer is really picking it up. And now I'm starting to see an acceleration. In the last 15 months, we've grown at an average of 154,000 households a month, 15 months straight. That has not slowed. And again, I see an acceleration of that as we continue to get more space, as we continue to get more awareness, as we continue to take that social event drives brand, right? That's where we went.
So can you tell me a little bit about that growth? Because you're saying you're looking across spins and you're just seeing it grow everywhere, like triple digits, velocity growth. But you also mentioned not everybody actually knows Carbone. I mean, people who go to New York and Miami and Vegas, like they know it, they love it's so good. But not everybody does. So what is actually making it clear off the shelves in all of these stores as you're getting all of this distribution? I mean, 25, 30,000 points of distribution. That's a huge number. You're all over the place and it's turning in all those places. So what's making that actually happen?
I think the consumer is just getting awareness of the brand because of all the social and the events that we're driving. Like I wake up every day grateful. I wake up every day grateful that Mario Carbone trusted me to take this Carbone brand and take that feeling that you get in a restaurant. It's not that just a taste, right? You go to that restaurant, it's kind of timeless. There's a feel, there's a look. Like, I went for lunch yesterday, and at 11:30 in the morning, there was a line outside for lunch. Like, you know what I mean? And it's kind of interesting because Pop Up Bagels is a few doors down. So there's lines for a couple of different places, but to see a line for a restaurant that's over 10 years old, and that's anytime you get the Carbone, you get there before opening, there's a line. Mario did something special there. He's also very, very involved in the brand. So like this is a modern chef-driven brand. So whatever he's doing to build the Carbone franchise, he's got restaurants. He's opening up in London, 2 weeks, the 15th. So they're opening up in London. But anything he's doing to drive that restaurant does have a halo effect on what we do. And then he brings us opportunities that help drive the brand as well. So like the spicy rigatoni truck that we did at 2 Post Malone concerts, that was bought in by Mario, right? Like who gets those type of opportunities? So I wake up every day grateful. And it's those type of opportunities that drive this brand. It's not going to be TV. Like I did it. I did a CTV thing a couple of years back and I didn't see awareness growth, right? I didn't see the growth the way I would have expected. Yet I do an event and or just like most recently, the collaboration we did with Malin and Getz, right? I want to say that's gotten 1 billion impressions in the last couple of weeks.
So, okay, that makes sense to me. As especially now you guys are a bigger brand, you've got, very heavy retail sales overall, which means you have probably the budget then to do those kind of events that if you're an early brand listening to this, you're like, yeah, of course, I would love to get to do a food truck, Post Malone, big kind of thing. But like I'm years away from having that kind of budget. But if you think back then, even in the early days, though, you guys were doing well. Do you think that was just all about the strength of the brand and immediately doing well? Just, I mean, if you taste the product, it's amazing. People are going to keep buying it. But just to really get people to start picking it up off the shelf at first in the early days, looking back, what do you think was the key there versus what you're doing now?
Look, it's just a continued push. Mario and I talk about this and we equate it back to boxing. You got to keep on hitting the body, right? Like you just got to keep on hitting the body and eventually you'll get them there. So look, the way we did start in the Northeast. And if you look at what's happening in the Northeast now, where we had an awareness, so I was able to build the data story. And I will always tell early startup, companies, find a data story. I don't care if it's one store. Get me one store that's got velocity. Don't go out and get 100 stores that are doing 1 unit. Get one store that's doing 100, right? And build that data story and then push the hell out of that data story. So it's not just, like if you look at Carbone, it's not just the promotion. It was getting started in the Northeast. Stop and Shop took a big risk and gave me a shot. And the reason I say that, when I signed my agreement on October 29th, I had a call with them on November 2nd, and they put it in based on a picture because of the background that I had. And like startup companies may not get that benefit. I did, you know what? And I took it. After 35 years, I should get a benefit every now and again. But we built that data story. And if you look at it now, like there's times where I've been number 4 in Stop and Shop, where I passed some of the major brands. Right now, I'm sitting at number 3 in Wegmans, right? And I do believe I will go to number 2 in Wegmans. And this is like a crossover conventional supermarket. This is not like, you get a lot of the data stories that come out of natural, right? This is now starting to hit in mainstream. I've been number 2 in natural for the last couple of years. And my goal is to be number 1. And I really wanted to get there this year. We're going to get there next year, right? But it's like continued pressure at every part of the business. It's not just the PR and the marketing. It's at the shelf. It's, making sure your sales team knows who a receiver is and they're getting in stores. Like we just built a survey. I have a our person Rick, who runs grocery for me, built a survey, and he's got his team going to X number of stores a month, talking to consumers at shelf, giving out VIP coupons. I do it. I'm in stores all the time. Like that's where everything begins and ends there, as my head of sales, Jim Morano, says. So that's it. It's just pressure on every part of the business you can while you're still trying to work cogs and you're still trying to do all the other things that you got to do.
That's awesome. And I love the idea of there is a partner on the other side who's building the brand while you're doing all that work as well. And they are increasing even awareness now of the restaurant, which will have this trickle effect. And yeah, it's very hard to get a table at Carbone, but you can get a jar of Carbone sauce at your house. And on that note, that is actually exactly what I have in front of me here. So Eric, you were kind enough to send a lovely set of samples here, which I will now pull in front of me. And I noticed you also have some new SKUs. I think the one that I am most interested in, being somebody who has, I'd say, very nostalgic or kind of basic taste buds, is this mac and cheese Alfredo sauce, which I don't know if it's weird, but I'm just going to sit here and keep eating it with a spoon because it just tastes like mac and cheese. It's so good. Can you talk me through a tasting of this as you would if I were a high powered buyer?
Well, I mean, look, as you taste it, do you get that full cheddar taste?
Absolutely.
And that was the goal, right? So as I looked at it and as we thought through the category, the Alfredo category, I said, okay, what can we do that's different, but that the consumer will immediately get? Like there's not a lot of thinking here as to what that is. And we have put it out on the shelves, and it's going really, really well. Now that's one where when I went to my chefs, who are arguably like the top Italian chefs in the world, right? Like I could say that with these guys. They're like, mac and cheese Alfredo, Eric, if you want to run that one's on you, right? You figure that out, right? Because that's not something they would develop themselves in the restaurant. But I wanted to do something to kind of set us out, set us apart on that shelf, and this clearly has. What's interesting about it is, like, it's too early to tell where it's going to go. I mean, where it is, it's going very, very well. The units per store per week are holding up, but it's early, so it's only been on the shelf, call it 4 to 6 months. That said, the social that's coming out of that, I can tell the consumer's resonating. Right. We've had, I won't say who, but we had a celebrity approach us and say, I love the mac and cheese so much, I want to do something forward facing. We can't move on the opportunity, which is why I won't, kind of get into who it was. But like, never in my life have I gotten someone reach out to me going, I want to do something forward facing with this mac and cheese. So it seems to be going really, really well. Where it is on the shelves, and it's probably got maybe 10% distribution compared to, say, where marinara is.
I love it. Eric, I also want to do something forward facing with mac and cheese. It's so good, but I am not a major celebrity, unfortunately. But it's cool that actually, I just
do it with you. There's not,
let's go. Whatever keeps the samples coming, but I did actually just post a story on our Startup CPG Instagram showing all the bottles, and it was because of the mac and cheese that made me like, oh, I got to show this. People need to see this thing. It's so cool. So I believe that it will be really effective in just some incrementality for the brand also. And I've talked to pasta sauce buyers at some of the national retailers that everybody listening to this probably wants to get into. And it's exactly that they're saying to me. They're like, yeah, I mean, it's getting to be a crowded space in the pasta sauce world. There are a lot of people who are coming in with really innovative stuff. And when I look at the lineups of stuff, I'm asking myself, what are you doing that's different? Are you just throwing another kind of standard marinara or whatever? Or are you doing some really interesting innovation? So I feel like that kind of innovation, like the mac and cheese Alfredo, that really hits and is delicious and can be a home run with consumers, will definitely help get you into even some of the doors you haven't managed to get yet, or just lots of additional shelf space, and also make consumers really take note who haven't looked at your brand yet.
Yeah, I mean, look, when it comes to innovation, I don't know if the world needs a teriyaki marinara sauce, right? Like, I just don't know if the world really needs it. And at some point, there may be an Olipop or Poppy of the pasta sauce category. Who knows, right? That's not where we're going. That's not who Carbone is. Like, you're not going to see that. So if you see stuff from us, it's going to be kind of like tried and true to a degree. Like mac and cheese is someone everybody knows. I'm not going to go out on a limb and try to create some flavor and hope. Not doing that, right? It doesn't make sense to do it for this brand. It's not who this brand is. But I see a lot of that I see a lot of innovation coming into the category, and I'm happy about it, right? Because I look at it, that's going to bring in a new consumer. It's going to bring in a younger consumer. That consumer is going to buy XYZ brand, but then they may graduate to my brand, right? Because they're premium pasta sauce buyers. So it used to be Rayo's just pushing on the premium end of the category. Then it was Rayo's and me. Now you got a lot of people pushing on that premium side of the category, in a category that happens to be premiumized. And, at Carbone, like the way I look at it, I'm delivering more growth than the 5 fastest growing brands behind me, which is pretty good.
That's what the buyers want to hear. I know that. And so, yeah, I mean, you guys have the, right to play in that premium segment because of the branding, because of the quality of the product that I think gives you a pretty big advantage over a lot of brands that are probably trying to come in and grow as well. So that, I think you guys probably had a little bit of an easier time at it, but then also taking these bets on innovation, but innovation that feels really classic at the same time. That probably means it also has a pretty big addressable market. So, okay, in my hand, I have one of the more classic flavors I think that you guys have. So I have the tomato basil, which I think maybe is my favorite. I always go back and forth on which one it is, but can you talk me through a tasting of it as I have a lovely spoonful?
What are you eating again? Is that, did you say you flip marinara? Is that the tomato basil?
Tomato basil.
Yeah. So look, the difference between our brand and any other brand that's out there, and Daniel, you're going to see me because of tariffs. Like I'll go there. You may at some point. You're going to see me start pushing on ingredients in a very, very big way, because I think it's what sets us apart from anybody else that's out there. So that product that you're eating right now, there's a number 10 can of tomatoes being opened up to make that product. There's 29 to 31 Pilates in each can. High-speed can opener doing it. We're not doing drum tomatoes. If someone gets me a drum without citric acid that tastes as good as a number 10 can, I'm all over it. We're chopping onions right on site. We're mincing garlic right on site. But for our basil, we're hand stripping basil right on site. That's what's going into that product. There's a couple other people that are doing it in the category, but very, very few. Like you have the closest thing that you're going to get to what you would make at home.
That's what it tastes like. It's so tomato forward, but in the way that reminds you of eating, actual fresh tomatoes, that it's really cool.
One thing I really want to do, and I just haven't had the opportunity to do it yet, I want to get a video of Mario cooking his sauce in the Carbone kitchen, and then a video of our sauce being made in our production facility. And you are really going to see pretty much the same thing. Like you are going to see, my dog wants to my dog behind me is doing a little cameo. I'm sorry.
That's okay. My dog is also next to me and watching me with this tray full of Carbone jars as well. She's really interested in if I might leave it unattended for a second.
This is a really fresh process, and it takes over an hour to cook. So like onions are cooked in olive oil for 18 months before you see, excuse me a second, onions are cooked, for 18 minutes before tomatoes hit. And those tomatoes are being opened up in number 10 cans, and they're being poured into a very small kettle compared to like a ragu, Bertolli, some of the other, what I call processed sauces. They have a completely different type of, cook process. So it takes a long time. It takes an hour to make this product. Like, and honestly, it saves you an hour and a half. That's what it does. And if you were to go out and buy every ingredient to make your own sauce, you're probably pretty close on price.
We'll be right back.
A few years back, when I ran a beverage company, we had to launch using those plastic sleeves to put our designs on the cans. But they looked bad. The sleeves get stretched out, they don't cover the full can, and overall, they just look and feel low quality. Lucky for you, digital can printing technology has come so far over the last few years that now you can launch your beverage brand or new SKUs with a fully printed look, and it's at similar pricing to those plastic sleeves. Our friends at CanWorks, which is the largest US-based digital can printer, are happy to work with our community at very low minimums, even 1 pallet. They've got locations in the East Coast, the West Coast, Texas. Get in touch with them through our contact form. It's at canworksprinting.com/startupcpg. the four cheese one that I'm having now, it tastes like if I had really good pasta, put the sauce on and put on a bunch of cheese on top of that. Like I loved having it like when I was
That was
a
the
kid.
intent. Now, when you're eating that right out of the jar, it's probably a little grainy. When you actually cook that down and you add the pasta, you have something really, really special with that sauce. Just because then the cheese kind of melts and it, melts together. The different types of cheeses that are in there, and you end up with a really, really special meal. That makes you feel like you cooked for a long, long time to get there.
And okay, so I've got the pizza sauce, and then I tried the spicy pizza sauce, which is pretty spicy.
A little hot, huh?
Yeah, it is. It gets you.
Yeah,
And then I've got the spicy vodka sauce because my favorite dish at Carbone is the spicy vodka penne, right?
yeah. So we worked hard on that, right? And I think I could probably say we're the first brand to ever say, "Hey, you got to add your own cream and butter to get there." But it was because we had that recipe in particular has been written about more than any other recipe in Carbone. It's been tried, everybody's tried to knock it off. Like you've got everybody's version online. And it's interesting. This is kind of what made me do this. I put spicy rigatoni in the search engine before I signed my agreement on October 29th of 2020. So 5 years ago, I'm like the first 5 pages on Google were Carbone. I didn't mention Carbone. I just wrote spicy rigatoni, right? So they're known for that dish. It's photographed. So we really had to get as close to that restaurant taste as we possibly could. And the only way I could do that, it was you got to add your own cream and butter.
Well, that seems fair, and also I like I just love that dish, and also when you go to the restaurant, it does not break the bank to get it also. So you can go and experience the goodness of Carbone. Most importantly, get the focaccia bread as well, and also it's one of the more affordable dishes. So if you have basic taste buds like me and you're going to Carbone, you're in luck because there are way more expensive things that you could order there, but it's just a simple classic. And yes, I love going there. So back to the business side a little bit now that we've done the full dive into these delicious jars. So can you tell me a little bit about how you've been scaling the business to keep up with all of the increased demand? So how are you growing your team and your infrastructure to support all the growth?
Round pegs and round holes is the way I look at it. We're at 35 people. I never wanted to be at 35 people. I like running small, lean teams. That's what I like to do. But having the right people in place and a good mix of someone you know and trust versus new energy that you don't know and trust that's bringing in, you don't know and you don't know them well enough to trust them yet, but you develop that trust. But they bring in different ideas and they bring in a different energy. So I've got a core team that kind of knows me, knows how to work with me, and they know how to scale, which is important. And then I've got a lot of other folks that have come in and brought in new ideas and energy and so on and so forth. So the balance is there. We're constantly trialing co-packers. We want to make sure that we have the capacity. We're qualified in multiple places where we have the ability to. We have a primary, but we have secondaries that are qualified. Kind of went down the same rate. We have one with Alfredo and we like them, and I believe that's where we'll stay. But I will trial a couple other people in case because you need some redundancy. You just never know what happens. So staying on top of that's very, very important. For a long time, it was very hard to get ahead of it. Like thinking about it now, I got like 10 weeks inventory on the floor. I remember in the beginning where I'd be calling the packer going, I need you to switch from marinara to arrabbiata because I'm out of stock on that. And that was every week. The juggle was happening constantly. The juggle's not happening as much anymore. Where it happens is when I get like a special order, like a Costco order, for example, and I've got to assemble 2 packs. And now all of a sudden I'm taking some line time for a few days. That's where it gets tough and we've got to be really planned. But like we seem to be very, very ahead of it from the production and sourcing standpoint right now.
And so, as obviously you're not going to be doing all of the hiring by yourself for every role, you're building out teams, but do you have any approach to hiring about like specific qualities that you really like to see in just about anybody or a specific kind of culture you want to build? Or do you really just go with tried and true people that come through your network and they've been crushing this for a long time?
No, I love bringing in people. I love like hiring for attitude and training for skill. I really do. You get the right person and, you know, they come in, they bring energy, they bring ideas, they'll make mistakes. Who cares? You know what I mean? Like it's the way it goes. I like energy. I like people who, are focused. And, when you meet someone, you can kind of tell, what kind of energy they're giving off when you're interviewing them and so on and so forth. And I just like people who are driven. Is really what it comes down to. And that's important. Like I'm a growth junkie. I'll admit it, right? Like, I had the good fortune of starting my career working for someone. I was a distributor, sold that business and went to work for Arizona Ice Tea at a time where it went from 0 to 500 million. And I like never wanted to leave growth after that. I just wanted to be involved in high growth companies and was like, that's been my career. So love growth. So I need people who can run, and they have to have a certain energy to do that. A lot of people can't survive in growth companies.
I like how you say that. And I think that's definitely something that I always like with people. Because, I mean, if somebody just has good energy and a lot of it, yeah, they can go make mistakes, but they're going to be trying their hardest and coming up with cool stuff. And they're very wonderful to work with and try to also coach them and train them to use their energy in the right way. And these are the kind of people who will just, run through a brick wall for what you're working on if they really believe in it. And that kind of energy you can grow a brand with, right?
No, and that's like I read a post from John Porker recently about, kind of developing that level underneath your direct reports. And like I took that to heart. And I tried to like take our top priorities to 6 the other day, and I stopped at 31. And I know I can consolidate and collapse that 31. I want kind of stream of consciousness to get everything down on paper. One of my opportunities is I suck at process, right? So, a lot of and I have a great team. So tactically we just get stuff done. But like there's no deadlines being set and things that I know I need to do to go from where I am today to be the billion-dollar brand that I know we are. Right. So that's starting to happen now. So I've got these things down on paper, and I did take the first like kind of 5 most important ones, and I assigned teams, and I put every leader of those teams is not a direct report for me. I want them learning, and these are things about how are we dealing with tariffs. There's some opportunity in warehousing because of our size now, right? Like how do we look at that? What can we do? Those type of things. So, those are projects that I'm putting my non-reports on because I really want them to learn. I want them to be involved in that process.
And can you talk to me a little bit about how you're funding all this crazy growth that you guys have? I mean, obviously capital intensive. It sounds like you're being pretty smart on the inventory, but how do you make sure you have all the money you need to support all of this inventory and all the accounts?
Between our initial raises, which were, all in turn, we have one outside investor that from the beginning, from day one. Between them, Major Food Group, we funded the business ourselves to this point with a credit line. And I don't anticipate having to go out. It's been a highly efficient use of capital. At this point, for every dollar that's been invested, we're getting like $4 out of right now, which I think is that's a major win. But I don't believe I'll have to raise any more money unless we determine, like if my board ever said, Eric, can we grow even faster than 100%? We can, because we're in 26,000 doors, and this is an awareness game now, right? It's an awareness and convert. Is where it's at. So I could make a case that we could go spend a bunch of marketing and grow faster. I'm not sure you build the right consumers, and I'm not sure you build the right brand with that. So I don't see myself doing that, but could be the case. But I think that's the gift that I had. I had a great brand in the Carbone brand. I had great investors in the fact that it's a family office. And it's Major Food Group. They're all younger than me. I'm the oldest guy here. I'm turning 62 in October. I have the energy that I have in my 30s, but I actually am working harder than I did in my 30s still. It's just, but I'm the oldest guy here. No one's in a rush, which I think is great because it gives me the opportunity to see this through. And like when I took over the Rayo's position, I had a goal of being number 1 in pasta sauce, and unfortunately was forced to sell that company because of a shareholder. I was bought in because of a shareholder battle. It's number 1. I wasn't there when it happened. That's sad, right? This brand has that type of feel to me that this can be the number 1 brand in the category. It's just going to take years. That's not something you make happen in a day.
Well, I love hearing that. And congrats on staying so efficient. I'm sure that your one outside investor is very happy and maybe even wants to keep it that way. So I doubt they'll come too fast asking for a lot more growth than you guys already have at the pace that you are. So Eric, what is your day to day then like at this point? You guys are growing fast. You obviously have built out all these different points of distribution, but you have to look at all the different parts of the business. And I really relate to you being not so process oriented because I'm naturally not that way either, but I'm trying to get better at it. So what are you doing at this point in the stage of the business on a day-to-day basis?
It's something different every day. I'm involved in every aspect of this business, probably to a fault, right? I probably have to kind of back off in some areas. But last week I was in, or 2 weeks ago, I was in Chicago to see KE and Arkansas to see Walmart, and flew to New York to see, Nassau Candy. And, I was at those calls. I'm going to a meeting in the Midwest next week because there's some cooking involved and our chef is preoccupied with something else. And, I might be I can't say I'm, one of the, I know I'm one of the best cooks out of my group. I don't know if I'm the best, right? There's other cooks that work with us that are good, but like this is a big customer and we have to cook. So I'm going to be there and I'm going to be in my apron.
So
That's
that's
every
very
day different.
impressive. Yeah.
I'm in the production facility at times. Like Daniel, for the first year, I tasted every batch before it was allowed to go in a jar, and we did 187,000 cases. And I would tell all your startup people, have that level of commitment in the beginning at your co-packer. Really have that. Don't just say it. Don't make it a story. Don't, no BS. And you will find things. You will catch things. In the beginning, you might be with a smaller co-packer that's going to try to cut corners, right? And if you're not there to watch that, they will cut corners. So be there, be on top of it. Make sure your product is the best and it's what you said it was going to be. Because at the end of the day, it's done to a consumer, and a brand is all about trust. And you need to have that trust, right? And that's, I think, what we've delivered on. And you asked earlier why we're growing. I think that's why. I think people are starting to really trust us as a brand.
We'll be right back.
Are you going to crush it on Amazon this year? It's such an important channel, but it's so hard to do alone, and most agencies are a total ripoff. We can't afford $5,000 a month and a commission on our sales. They just don't get it. That's why I love our partners at Daybreak. They are full service, meaning they do the creative work, the listings, the logistics, and of course, all the ads, all with the most reasonable retainer out there. I work with them personally. I'm so grateful we have such a good partner to recommend out to you, our community. They do evaluate your product first to see if it might be a fit. So if you want them to have a look, email them, startupcpg@daybreak.agency, and they'll do a free audit for you. Good luck, everyone. I really like that comment about being so active with the co-man, being there for a lot of the runs, trying the product. I just don't have as much experience doing that. Have you seen ways specifically where they could cut corners, like things that you could really watch out for, steps in the process or the ingredients, or like how they batch things? What are some of the ways that they could actually do that?
I mean, just I'll give you an example of a packer that I don't work with anymore, just to give you an idea. So he had a line go down when he was running my product. He had onions already chopped. He put them into a barrel. They went into a cooler. Well, the next day when he went to run it, he tried to use those onions. If I was not there, I would not have caught that. But what happens when those onions are sitting there? Well, all of that kind of, onion water, for lack of a better way to say it, is going to the bottom. So that onion doesn't have the flavor that it would. Right. And just that little thing would make your product, like, would it taste bad? No, but it'd be a little flat compared to what it would be. And I don't want a consumer to get something a little flat. So, if I wasn't there, that would have happened. So that's just one small example. There's probably a million other examples, and every product's different. So I'd have to do it, but it is around an ingredient. Do people like hand stripping my basil? No, but if I'm not inspecting, are they going to try to use IQF? Maybe. Right. And I'm not anti IQF. In that tomato basil, it's the one I use a little IQF in because I couldn't be kosher if I didn't. There's a limit of fresh basil, believe it or not, with the Orthodox Union.
I gotcha. And I mean, I really appreciate the commitment to it just being the best that it possibly can be and as good as it should be all the time. Because if it's one of those things like loyalty, right? It takes a long time to build up, but it can be lost immediately. And it really just takes one person getting a jar once where they're like, oh, this like maybe isn't as good as I remember. And they don't understand that there are different batches of things and that the product, if it even like longer shelf life, if it's older and that it could taste a little bit different. Consumers don't know that. They're just like, this is what the product tastes like. And oh, okay, maybe maybe I don't need this as badly as I thought I needed it. Something like that, right? Which I feel like a co-man is not going to be as preoccupied with as you, the brand owner, who is absolutely obsessed with the consumer experience every time.
Right. And like, if you think, I mean, just to layer on that about how seriously we take this. Every single month, I meet with Mario Carbone and Rich Teresi, and we taste our marinara every month against a controlled sample that's the perfect marinara to make sure that we're on spec. Like, I want them to do it because they've got a different palate than me, right? Rich will taste things that I couldn't taste. In particular, I spent a lot of time with Rich Teresi developing things, who's Mario Carbone's partner, and we'll taste, and he'll pick something up, and I'll go, wow, I did. Once he says it, I'll pick it up, but not until he says it. So we're constantly tasting that, and it's really an R&D meeting every month where the three of us get together. We go through whatever we're developing, taste it, see if it's there. But we always make it a point to taste a marinara, and generally we'll taste a competitor's marinara as well at the same time, just to see, what's out there. We'll pick a different one most times. Sometimes it's always the number one because that's who I'm pushing against.
So, yeah, one thing you were talking about before, just when you're talking about how you got the idea to do this, how you approached the Carbone team and got it going, it just seems like such a good idea, and I mean, I know that's not all it takes, right? It takes somebody like you who knows how to then actually go and grow the brand and execute it and get it into the distribution and scale with the right partners, all of that stuff. But I did kind of wonder, did you have any other ideas like that? Or if there's a brand out there wondering, oh, like, should I look at some, whether it's restaurant or an athletic brand or anything like that? Do you have any suggestions for people for how they could even dream up some of those kind of partnerships, or any even that you kind of think like, hey, you're not going to do them, but somebody else should maybe take a look at it? Anything you can give people some ideas?
Well, to tell you the truth, I'd love to say I was so brilliant that I came up with the idea of doing Carbone. I'm not. Jordan Gaspar from itself actually introduced me to Mario, and I had never thought about doing another pasta sauce. Like, I just didn't. But I think there's a lot of categories out there. I think you got to be very, very smart, and I think you got to be strategic about how you do it. So, like, is the category premiumizing really, really important? Unless you're a lower end brand, and that's what you intend to be. So I think you just got to look category by category. Like, if I had time, and I don't, time is not something I have, I would go through every single aisle in the store, and I would say to myself, what needs disruption? There are a lot. I mean, there are a lot of categories that still have not been disrupted, right? So I'd start there. And then if you wanted to team with a brand because you didn't want to go down the brand thing, then look at who's doing something really interesting there that's got to follow, right? You need to have that follow. But no matter what, there's no such thing as like instant success. I remember calling you on a buy when I was launching this, and I'll call them out. And the buyer knew me, right? Like, this is someone who knew me from Rayo's. And they said to me, Eric, I've got 7 restaurant brands sitting on my desk right now. Why do I want to take yours? Like, but in a negative, like, you ain't getting in here. And I literally had to go, and I never do this. And early on, I had to go above that buyer, that replenishment order that buyer said, and go to some relationships I have and say, look, I'm not being treated fairly here. I've got a background that you should at least have a conversation with me. Don't just tell me you got 7 restaurant brands. So, that's where it's going to be, no matter what concept you come up with, right? Because not everybody's going to know Carbone or whatever one you pick. But you're seeing it in ice cream. You're seeing a lot of ice cream concepts come to life, and grow. I don't know if it's at the scale. But there are definitely categories where you can go out and take someone's name and kind of build it. I mean, the one that's going to be coming to the U.S. pretty soon, that interests me because of the category, is Jim Connor, your buddy, right?
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah, it's such a cool brand.
That's one that was smart, right? That was a smart play. Who knows what Indian's going to scale to in the U.S., but we know it's going to scale to something. not going to decline.
Yes, he's doing a great job. I saw he just got into all the Sainsbury's, I think, across the UK also. So that brand is definitely going to be coming into the US, I'm sure, in a major way at some point.
At some point, like I don't know what his plans are, but I'm just saying, like that was just you asked for an example. That's a very smart play.
Yeah. So, and and you mentioned about going over the buyer's head. I've done that in different scenarios as well, which sometimes actually is enough to get it kind of jump started. But also, it can be a little tricky then to manage the relationship back again with that buyer who's like, "You did what? Like you went over my head." They don't always love when you do it, but sometimes you
Honestly,
just
I
have
really
to.
I would for your startup CPG people, I would advise never do it. Work with your buyer. This was a particular case. I was launching and I needed to get into DCs, and I was like, all right, I got to move on this. And I didn't have that big anchor that this particular distributor was looking for yet. Knew I'd get there eventually, but I didn't have them yet. But you know how that goes.
I know what you're saying, and I kind of agree. Like, yeah, don't do it unless you have to, and then
Unless
maybe
you actually,
do.
like,
But
if you absolutely have to, because you hit a stone wall, you got to do it, right? What could break at that point? But then you're right.
yeah.
You got to go navigate back to that buyer. So we're at a point where we are having some meetings with folks that are above our buyer, but now it's because we've built to that point,
Yeah. And
right?
then and
We're
I'm
not pushing for them; they're coming to us, saying, "Hey,
yep.
let's look at a 3-year strat plan type of situation," because they're seeing significant growth.
That is great. But then you also never know. That buyer in like 10 years is now the final boss buyer at that desperate account you're trying to get into. And they're like, I
Look,
remember when.
I mean, I won't. I'll use one person's name and I won't use the other. But uh, there's a guy at Dora's named Chris Bajuk. Chris and I worked together at both Fresh Cement and Naked Juice. And at Naked Juice, he got upside down with a buyer at a chain, and I won't say what. And that buyer just stonewalled him every which way. All of a sudden, that buyer was on the other side, and I got a call from Chris, and this had to be 10 years after we were working with each other. And he's like, "You would never get who had to sit across the desk from me," and it was. I think Chris ended up taking it in, but I think he made it hard for him.
Is so funny. And I think you really, the longer you're in this industry, which, okay, I've been in CPG now for 12, 13 years, the more you appreciate that, well, things change a lot and relationships here are everything and they last a lifetime. And people who are doing something today may be doing something very different later. And you never know when it's like, oh my gosh, like that person who I treated really well is actually now like in a major buying position, or hopefully not the opposite where you're like, yeah, I did not give that person a lot of time and now they actually are very influential in a way that, can impact me. But I know you've seen that through your career a
It's
ton.
like a buddy of mine used to say to me, CPG is like a deck of cards. Same cards, they're just getting shuffled around. And some people go from being, the two to the king. So you got to be careful.
All right. Well, on that note, I'm going to wish royal flushes for everybody and that the cards will line up the way that you will. And just one question just to close on. So, you obviously have done this a bunch of times and you have a great playbook and a lot of instincts, and you just have a probably more sophisticated understanding of how to grow a brand and how the distribution game really works. But just if you can give a little bit of advice, let's say to an early brand who doesn't have the benefit of all your relationships and experience, I suspect you'd say, yeah, if you're growing without as much to go with as you guys had to start, it sounds like you might still recommend a similar kind of playbook, which is focus on a region, make sure you're doing really well in those accounts. But any other tips that you would give to people in terms of channel strategy or where to focus your team or sales efforts or marketing in just those early years?
Yes, stay single channel if you can. If you've got to go dual because you're online, go dual. Make sure it's in your own backyard. Be able to walk into the stores that you're working on. I see too many people going, I live in Peoria, but I'm going to launch in LA. Yeah, good idea. Right? That to me would tell me, like when early stage say, would you invest in me? Well, what's your plan? Well, I live here and I'm going to launch over there. No, I'm not investing. Stay in your own backyard as much as you possibly can, or as close to your production facility where you're willing to spend the time, where you can be in. Keep your costs as low as you possibly can. So as close to the production facility to me makes a lot of sense. Keep your freight costs low. keep everything low. So you have that money to put back in and really, really try to build a data story and don't BS yourself. Like, honestly, just don't tell yourself stories. You have to really look at the mirror and have an honest conversation with yourself about how your brand is doing all the time, because we tend to BS ourselves. Find people around you who are honest with you. I have a couple of innovation items coming out. I send one to my brother, because guess what? He will beat the hell out of me if he doesn't like it. He's a good home cook, but I'll hear real. And that's what I want to hear. I want to hear real. I don't want people telling me, I got the greatest thing in the world. So you just got to like really, really be truthful with yourself as to where you are. And today, I've done it once and it cost me. When you have that success, and things are going and you've got the units per store per week and you're ready to ramp, don't ramp until you have the checkbook to ramp. Right? I've done it and I've said, I'll be able to continue to ramp, and then 08 happened. So just like you never know what's around the corner. So just make sure that you're really confident that you've got the capital to continue to scale once you have that little bit of success.
I love that. All of that resonates with me. And I've been at those kind of companies also that everyone's just rallying around this story of growth and the same story you're trying to tell to investors about this unlimited up and to the right kind of trajectory. You're also just convincing yourselves that it's happening internally as well. And if there is a reasonable naysayer, they get pushed out. And that's the person who actually had the right production forecast, So I really appreciate it. Okay, Eric. Well, thank you so much for coming back on. I look forward to doing the next episode when you're at 1 billion and have some more lessons. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate just your willingness to come and share all of your experience with the community. And it is really a joy to watch all of your success and get to enjoy these products. So thank you again from me and the whole community.
Appreciate you having me here. And if it's the one thing I miss being so full on and kind of in the lifestyle right now of what I'm building is helping earlier stage companies. Is one of my favorite things to do. And I just don't have the time that I did in the past. So, hopefully this does help and reach a lot of people.
I appreciate that about you. And it really is true, because I was one of those people who just reached out to you. That's how you and I got to know each other, is I just hit you up on LinkedIn once like, hey, you have a cool career. Could you just tell me a little bit about it? Because that's the kind of thing that I want to have. And you were really nice and we're happy to get on a call with me.
Yeah, hard for me to do as much these days, but it's good.
Yes, I can definitely appreciate that. You got to be busy doing the thing, not telling everyone about how you're doing it.
Exactly. All right. Well, listen, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye, everyone. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. If you loved it, I would so appreciate it if you could leave us a review. You could do it right now. If you're an Apple Podcasts, you can scroll to the bottom of our Startup CPG Podcast page and click on Write a Review. Leave your company name in there. I will try to read it out. If you're in Spotify, you can click on About and then the star rating icon. If you are a service provider that would like to appear on the Startup CPG Podcast, you can email us at partnerships@startupcpg.com. Lastly, if you found yourself grooving along to the music, it is my band. You can visit our website and listen to more. It is superfantastics.com. Thank you, everybody. See you next time.